While robbing a tomb, I saved a noble lady who'd been buried alive as a sacrificial offering, but she turned around and set her sights on my husband, even willing to become his concubine, yet Liu Qingyuan refused outright. She, with your noble status as a 1,000 gold lady, how could you demean yourself to be a concubine? As for you, he turned to me, his voice cold, a bandit by birth, you're far too lowly to be my legal wife. Seeing me fall silent, he tossed a pouch of broken silver at my feet. Let this settle the debt of gratitude for past kindnesses. I'm sorry, let's pretend we never met at all. 3 months later, Liu Qingyuan married his new bride with a wedding procession stretching 10 li, draped in vibrant red silk, but on their wedding night, the couple vanished without a trace, becoming an unsolved mystery. In a desolate wilderness grave, I slammed shut the heavy stone coffin lid, shoveling dirt over it. One spadeful after another. My apologies to the two of you. Let's pretend I never saved either of you. It happened when I dug my tunnel off course during a tomb heist, stumbling into a newly buried grave. Inside the coffin that should have held nothing but cold silence, there came a faint, scratching sound, sharp and desperate. It was the beautiful woman, sealed alive in the coffin as a sacrificial victim, still clinging to life. I pulled her out and took her home. Nursing her back to health with great care, the corpse toxin had seeped into her body, requiring a millennium-old elixir to cure her. So I combed through ancient tombs day and night for 7 straight days, never once closing my eyes to rest. But as soon as she recovered, she crawled into my husband's bed without hesitation. I trembled with rage, grabbing a broom to chase the ungrateful woman out of my house. Yet she dropped to her knees before me with a thud. I truly adore Brother Liu with all my heart, she sobbed. I beg you, sister, please grant me your permission. Let me stay as his concubine. Liu Qingyuan, who'd been silent all this time, finally spoke up. This won't do. Of course it won't do. Years ago, the Liu clan had been framed and massacred, wiped out entirely. I dug him out from under a pile of corpses, then carried him on my back through the snow for 3 days and 3 nights, just to escape the pursuers and save his life. I damaged my health in the process, left with a lifelong ailment that made me dread the cold. On our wedding night, after kowtowing to heaven, earth, and our ancestors, he knelt before me with utmost piety. In this life, you are my only one. We will grow old together in love and never betray each other. For 5 years, he doted on me, showering me with endless tenderness and care. He never made me frown, never once quarreled with me, with his handsome looks. Whenever he sat in the academy, countless young ladies would flock to flirt with him, yet he never spared any of them, not a single glance, regardless of their beauty. I'd thought today would be no different, but to my utter shock, he went on to say, she is a noble lady of a distinguished family. How could she condescend to be a mere concubine? As for you, a bandit by birth, being my legal wife is a stain on my reputation. The broom clattered to the floor from my limp hand. My eyes widened in disbelief as I stared at the man before me. What did you say? When he'd woken up all those years ago, he'd said my kindness in saving his life was too great to repay with anything but himself. I'd turned him down flat, because I was born in a bandit's den. While he was the scion of an official family, I feared tainting his spotless reputation. But Liu Qingyuan had only smiled and said, Miss Shen, I've heard all about your deeds these past few days. You don't rob tombs for gold or silver only to copy lost medical texts and ancient books from the burial chambers. An act so righteous, how can it be called banditry? My cheeks flushed red. Well, I have taken some money along the way, too. The candlelight flickered dimly as he leaned closer, a strange glint in his eyes. During the Great Famine, when not a single grain grew, if you hadn't taken those treasures from the tombs and distributed them to the villagers to survive, there wouldn't be a single soul left in these 10 li of villages today. What you've done is chivalrous, robbing the rich to help the poor. To have a wife like you is my greatest fortune. His voice was like a flame, burning hot against my face. I hung my head, gently punching his arm. "Stop spouting nonsense. Who said I'd agree to be your wife? You don't get a choice in the matter." His words still echoed in my ears, but now they felt nothing short of a cruel mockery. Seeing me fall silent, he held out a pouch of broken silver. "Take this money as compensation from 1111 and me. Let this settle the debt of gratitude for saving my life. We're even now. I'm sorry. Let's pretend we never met." With that, Liu Qingyuan helped the beautiful woman to her feet and walked out without a backward glance. Just like before, I didn't get a choice in the matter. Watching his resolute retreating figure, a wave of nausea washed over me, genuine, gut-wrenching nausea, clutching my mouth. I stumbled outside and retched violently against the peach tree in the courtyard. The two of them were just about to step through the gate when they heard the sound and froze. "A Yi." Liu Qingyuan turned around, his voice strained as he uttered my name. "You're with child." I wiped my mouth carelessly. "So what if I am? So what if I'm not?" "Liu Qingyuan, your heart is as hard as iron. Do you really think you'd change your mind because of a child?" I turned my head away. But my heart was in turmoil. I'd thought the cold that seeped into my bones all those years ago had left me barren forever. I never imagined. I shot a glance at the man standing frozen in place. The joy on his face was unmistakable, overflowing in his eyes. But feelings, once broken, can never be mended. Even if he changed his mind because of the child, I would never, ever forgive him. My child didn't need a father who was so heartless, so ungrateful. Making up my mind, I stood up and went back inside to pack my bags, but I'd only taken 2 steps when a sharp pain exploded at the back of my neck. The world went black instantly. When I opened my eyes again, everything was still pitch black. I frowned in confusion. It wasn't winter. Why was it taking so long for dawn to break? I tried to sit up, only to bump my head against something hard above me. I reached out to touch it. That familiar cold, damp chill sent a shiver down my spine. I felt around me in the darkness. No, this couldn't be. It was a stone coffin. Somehow, I'd been sealed inside a coffin. "Help, is anyone there?" I banged frantically on the coffin lid, the sound dull and heavy. To my shock, there was someone outside. Hearing the noise, they pried the lid open a crack. Fresh air mixed with raindrops rushed in instantly, filling my lungs. I gasped for breath. "Thank you." I raised a hand to wipe the raindrops from my face, but my fingers came away warm and wet. I froze. Looking up, I saw Liu Qingyuan standing over me, tears streaming down his face. "A Yi, I'm sorry." A terrible premonition gripped my heart, but I forced myself to stay calm. "It's fine. Just open the lid all the way first. We can talk about whatever this is outside." He ignored me completely. "A Yi, all these years, my feelings for you were genuine. But I carry a blood feud, a hatred that burns in my bones. My enemy wields immense power in the capital. Only by climbing higher than him can I ever hope to avenge my family. But it's so hard, so impossibly hard. The upper classes are closed off to those from humble backgrounds. The lower classes can never rise above their station. As long as I remain a commoner from a poor family, I will never have a chance to succeed. The only one who can help me is Ning 1111. My heart skipped a beat. He went on, his voice trembling with a strange fervor. "You may not know this, but Ning 1111 is actually a noble lady of a marquis's mansion. The 6th prince was gravely ill, so the emperor arranged a marriage for her to marry him and bring him good fortune. But she'd only been at the palace for 1 day. Before the wedding ceremony even took place, the prince passed away. The imperial concubine, furious, secretly ordered her to be buried alive as a sacrifice. When the emperor learned of this, he was enraged. He demoted the concubine and posthumously conferred upon 1111 the title of Princess Anning. But who could have imagined that you would save her? The torchlight flickered, casting shadows over Liu Qingyuan's jade-like face, which was twisted with a mad, fanatical glow, and she just happened to take a liking to me. If I marry her, I'll no longer be a mere commoner, I'll become the princess's consort and official of the court. Cold sweat soaked through my clothes, leaving me trembling. But what does this have to do with me? Divorce me if you want, write me a letter of separation. I won't utter a single word of complaint. If you're afraid people will find out about me, I'll leave this place at once and never appear before you two again. He let out a low, deranged laugh, the sound echoing through the dark, cramped tomb, sending chills down my spine. That is what I originally planned, but I never, ever expected that you would be pregnant at this moment. He closed his eyes, as if unable to bear the sight of me. It's not that I don't care about this child, but officialdom is a treacherous place, full of hidden dangers and deceitful hearts. If I leave you and the child alive, once someone with ill intentions finds out about you, this scandal will destroy me utterly. I can't take that risk. I dare not take that risk. Don't blame me for being cruel. Blame this world we live in. He reached out to slam the coffin lid shut. No, I screamed, my voice cracking with terror. I'm not even sure if I'm really pregnant. Even if I am, you could force me to get rid of it. But you won't even give me a chance to check. You're just going to kill me outright. Liu Qingyuan, I only ask you one thing. Why? Why are you doing this? He laughed, as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. Why? The official selection is just around the corner. 11:11 and I have to return to the capital first, then hold our wedding. I have to pay homage to the clan, bribe the officials in charge of the selection, kowtow to my superiors. Every single one of these things is crucial. How could I afford to waste time messing around with you here? I closed my eyes, shaking my head slowly. No, you're just guilty. Guilty of abandoning your wife and child. Guilty of betraying the woman who saved your life. Afraid that one day, when you've achieved fame and fortune, I'll show up with our child, bearing decades of blood, sweat, and tears to expose your heartlessness to the entire world. You're killing me not for any other reason, but just to ease your own conscience. His face turned an ugly shade of green and white, contorting with rage and shame. Finally, he admitted it, his voice gritted through his teeth. So what if I am? Blame it on your wretched background. If you weren't so lowly, I could have just kept you as a concubine and been done with it. Why else would I have to go to such lengths? He looked down at me one last time, his eyes cold and empty. Shintiani, next life. Don't be a bandit. As the heavy stone slab slowly slid closed, darkness swallowed me whole once again. The sound of his footsteps faded into the distance, and the last of my resolve crumbled away, replaced by overwhelming terror and bitter, burning resentment. Was this really how I was going to die? The air was running out fast. I gasped for breath like a fish stranded on shore, but it was useless. My fingers scraped against the cold coffin walls, leaving trails of blood in their wake. As my consciousness faded, one final thought flashed through my mind. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. Marrying him was a mistake. Loving him was a mistake, and saving his life all those years ago was the biggest mistake of all. And that ungrateful noble lady from the Marquis's mansion. Just thinking about the two of them made me hate that death was coming so slowly, so agonizingly. If only I could turn into a vengeful ghost right now, even tearing them limb from limb, feasting on their flesh and drinking their blood, would never be enough to quench my hatred. Liu Qingyuan, Ning 11:11. If I could do it all over again, I swear I'll make you both pay. Suddenly, a voice called softly in my ear. Miss Shen, Miss Shen. My eyes flew open in an instant. Standing before me was a man dressed in coarse linen clothes, his handsome eyes shining like stars. He had a blade of grass tucked casually behind his ear, and he grinned at me. Look at you, scowling like you've got a grudge against the world. Another nightmare. I mumbled a vague reply. Only then did I remember I wasn't dead. That day, whether it was divine intervention, or the cycle of karma coming full circle, just like Ning 11:11. I'd been rescued by a tomb robber right before I took my last breath. Neither, he said, answering the unspoken question in my mind. His booted legs swung back and forth lazily. Years of consecutive disasters have left the common folks with no choice but to live off the mountains and rivers, he said casually. But here in the Central Plains, we've got nothing to rely on except this treasure trove of a place, the Baymang Mountains. Since ancient times, nobles have flocked here to build their tombs. Where there's treasure, tomb robbers are never far behind. Sometimes, 4 or 5 different gangs will raid the same tomb in a single day. Running into you was just business as usual. It had nothing to do with that lousy old sky. I nodded. Either way, thank you for saving me. Save the thanks. He slung his hands behind his head, leaning against the tree in a lazy, comfortable pose. I've been at this for half a year now, and 9 out of 10 tombs I dig up are already empty. If things keep going like this, I'm gonna starve to death. I thought for a moment, then spoke up, if you don't mind. When I come back from the capital, I'll teach you some tricks of the trade, how to read geomancy, how to locate tombs. It's the least I can do to repay you for saving my life. He let out a surprised her. What are you going to the capital for anyway? I polished the Luoyang shovel in my hands gently, my voice cold and steady. Revenge. Xue Lang and I sat at a wonton stall, shoveling the piping hot dumplings into our mouths, both of us wincing and hissing from the burn. Who would have thought this guy was so worried I'd skip town without keeping my promise that he'd followed me all the way to the capital, and he had the nerve to call himself my supervisor. Not far away, the Marquis of Cheese Mansion stood grand and imposing, with carriages coming and going in an endless stream. I frowned. Are you sure you got the right place? Absolutely, he replied, taking a sip of his soup. It's the only Marquis's mansion in town with the surname Ning, and the only one whose daughter was betrothed to the 6th prince. But why have we been staking this place out for half a month now without catching a glimpse of those two? The words were barely out of my mouth when it suddenly clicked. To Liu Qingyuan, once he stepped through those vermilion gates, Ning 1111 would be an unattainable princess, a woman far above his station, even with the so-called debt of gratitude. The old Marquis would never agree to let his daughter marry a commoner like him. So Liu Qingyuan's plan was crystal clear. He had to get the raw rice cooked into ripe rice first, and the wedding had to be grand, public, and legitimate. The more people who witnessed it, the harder it would be for the Marquis to back out later. He'd have no choice but to accept this low-born son-in-law and help him climb the ladder of power. A cold, bitter laugh bubbled up in my chest. Oh, Liu Qingyuan, you really are a master manipulator, aren't you? Let's go, I said, wiping my mouth and standing up. Ask around, see if any families in the city are planning weddings soon. We're going to crash a feast. After checking several silk shops and wine houses, we finally got our answer. In 3 days, a newly relocated family in the eastern part of the city would be holding a wedding. Rumor had it the groom was as handsome as Panen, and the bride was a stunning beauty. The two were deeply in love. Inseparable, everyone in the neighborhood said they were a match made in heaven. No one knew, however, whether their surname was Liu or Ning. When Xue Lang heard the words stunning beauty, he grinned mischievously and dragged me toward the east city without another word. I quickly grabbed a bamboo hat from a street vendor, pulling the brim low to hide most of my face, leaving only my chin exposed. The eastern district was lined with old houses and faded plaques, all except one, a quiet courtyard house with 2 characters freshly painted on its gate, Shen Residence. This had to be the place. But why the surname Shen? I was still puzzling over it when voices drifted out from inside the courtyard. Master Shen, shall we write the marriage contract in gold ink? A woman's voice asked. Only after exchanging the betrothal certificates will this engagement be officially recognized. Forgive my impertinence. But might I ask where your respected parents are? A man's familiar voice replied, calm and collected. To tell you the truth, Shun is just an assumed name, a way to honor the memory of someone who saved my life once. My real surname is Liu. Please be careful not to make a mistake on the certificate, Madam Matchmaker. My parents passed away when I was young. As for my fiancé's family, you'll find out in due time. My blood boiled at the sound of that voice. It was him. It was definitely him. After seeing the matchmaker off, the two walked out of the house together. Even after all this time, Liu Qingyuan still looked every bit the refined, noble scholar, his white robes spotless, his face serene, not a trace of weariness from his journey. But the woman beside him was a different story. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face pale and gaunt, looking utterly exhausted and haggard. She clutched his sleeve tightly, begging him with tears in her eyes. Yuan, I really don't want to go back to the Marquis's mansion, she sobbed. Can't we just be an ordinary couple, living a quiet, peaceful life? Is that too much to ask? You don't understand, father. My father is a monster, and the imperial concubine, they're ruthless. They'll chew you up and spit you out without a second thought. Liu Qingyuan pulled her into his arms, comforting her softly. It's all right, I know you're angry. I know you resent him for forcing you to marry a dying man. But blood is thicker than water. Fathers and daughters don't hold grudges forever. Once we're married and return to the mansion, I'll talk to him personally. I'll make him listen to reason. He looked so confident, so sure of himself, as if he already had all that wealth and power firmly in his grasp. Trust me, when he sees you're alive and well, and that you've brought back such a handsome son-in-law like me, he'll be over the moon. The woman's delicate face twisted with pain. She opened her mouth to say more, but Liu Qingyuan cut her off, bending down to kiss her lips. A gust of wind blew through the courtyard, sending pear blossoms fluttering down like a shower of white snow. I quickly covered my eyes, grabbing the stunned Xuelang and pulling him into a nearby alleyway to hide. We spoke at the same time. Seeing how eager he looked to speak, I scratched the back of my head awkwardly. You first. This was just so awkward. Who is that woman? He asked, his voice sharp with confusion. I blinked, confused by his confusion. Who else could she be? Princess Anning, Ning 1111. But Xuelang blurted out without hesitation. Impossible. That's not what Ning 1111 looks like. Now it was my turn to be stunned speechless. What did you just say? Realizing he'd let something slip, he quickly hung his head, muttering awkwardly. I mean, she doesn't look like a princess, that's all. I let out a laugh, teasing him. She's a noble lady from a marquis's mansion. She never steps foot outside the gates. How would a street rat like you know what she looks like? Don't tell me you've never seen such a beauty before and have developed a crush. When he didn't reply, I shrugged it off, turning toward the alley exit. Come on, I waved at him. Quit daydreaming. I'll treat you to spicy soup. I'm serious, Xuelang said suddenly, his tone turning serious. Haven't you ever doubted it? The Marquis of Qi dotes on his daughter more than anything in the world. How could he bear to send her like a lamb to the slaughter, to marry a dying man just to bring him good fortune? I rolled my eyes at him over my shoulder. You're an idiot. It was an imperial edict. Who dares to defy the emperor? Besides, even a dying man is still a prince. Who in their right mind would turn down that kind of connection? A cold, mocking smile tugged at his lips. Then you're seriously underestimating that old man. Defying an imperial edict is the least of his worries. He'd even dare to rebel if it suited his purposes. As for the sixth prince, his sudden death, it's almost certainly his doing. Oh, I stopped in my tracks, turning to face him fully. What you're saying makes sense. So then, who is she? The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that swallowed our figures whole as darkness fell. And, I added, my voice cold and sharp, who are you? Xuelang casually pulled a flint from his pocket, striking it to light the lantern in his hand. The warm glow flickered to life, illuminating his face little by little. Me, he said, his voice softening. I was betrayed by my own blood relatives. I survived only by sheer luck, thanks to someone who saved me. I'm just someone who shares your pain." I stared at him coldly. Is that so? This man clearly had deep ties to the nobility and powerful families of the capital. Yet he chose to dress like a common thief, following me around like a loyal dog day in and day out. In the past, I wouldn't have cared. He was probably just some bored young master from a wealthy family, tired of his pampered life, looking for a taste of adventure in the Jianghu. But after everything that had happened to me, I knew better than anyone just how cruel and deceitful people could be. There were no coincidences in this world, no kindness given without a reason. This man, he wanted something from me. I was certain of it, sensing the suspicion in my eyes. Xuelang froze for a moment, then let out a bitter, resigned laugh. "All right, I'll tell you the truth. I have someone I owe a great debt to. Right now, she's trapped in a terrible situation, struggling to survive. Everything I do, every single thing, is to save her. Miss Shen, Yi." He looked into my eyes, his voice steady and sincere, each word weighted with meaning. "I can't reveal my identity to you yet, but please believe me, I will never, ever hurt you." The way he said my name, so gently, so carefully, it made me think back to the day he'd rescued me from that coffin, the look in his eyes when he'd seen me lying there, anxiety, fear, urgency, regret, so many emotions, flashing across his face in an instant, but not a single trace of malice. My guard lowered slightly, and I softened my tone, asking the question that mattered most. "If that's the case, how sure are you about Ning 1111's identity?" 100% sure, Xuelang replied, his eyes burning with certainty. He paused, frowning thoughtfully. "But that face, I swear I've seen it before in the Marquis of Qis mansion." Suddenly, his eyes lit up. "That's it. She's a maid who works there. She cleans the courtyard. She's always following the real Ning 1111 around. Her name is Yinga, I think." I narrowed my eyes, the pieces finally falling into place. "So that's it. The old Marquis loved his daughter too much to let her marry a dying man, but he couldn't afford to defy the Emperor's order either, so he found a beautiful maid to take her place, a case of substituting a peach for a plum. That explained why she'd been so desperate to avoid going back to the Marquis's mansion whenever Liu Qingyuan mentioned it. She was an imposter. No doubt she'd fallen in love with Liu Qingyuan, but feared he'd reject her because of her lowly status. So she'd used the name of the Marquis's daughter, hoping to win his love and respect, but instead, she'd only fueled his ambitions, his greedy desire to climb the social ladder at any cost. Now she was stuck, trapped in a web of lies she'd helped weave. It really was a case of you reap what you sow. I let out a long, heavy sigh, as I stood there lost in thought. A single candle flame flickered toward me through the darkness like a lone boat on the water. Xuelang held the lantern in one hand, draping his outer robe over my shoulders with the other. "Now that we know the truth, there's no need to rush. It's getting late. Let's go back and rest first." I nodded, walking beside him side by side. "Tomorrow, we're going to the Marquis of Qis mansion," I said, a cold smile tugging at my lips. "The daughter and son-in-law are getting married soon. It's such wonderful news. How could the father not know about it?" The 23rd day of the 3rd lunar month, the day before the start of summer, Liu Qingyuan sent a wedding procession stretching 10 li to fetch his bride, with feasts laid out from the courtyard all the way to the end of the street. Xuelang and I found a quiet table in the corner and sat down. I wiped my hands clean, tore off a chicken leg, and stuffed it into his hand as if it were my own wedding celebration. "Eat." Then I filled his bowl to the brim with wine. "Drink it all, don't leave a single drop." He obeyed without complaint. After chugging an entire jar of Enuahong wine, he burped loudly, grinning at me. "Dear sister, I know you're in a bad mood, but you don't have to punish me like this. My alcohol tolerance is terrible. What if I mess up our plan later?" I gnawed on a chicken bone, my voice thick with bitterness. This isn't punishment. This is called free food, free drink. Don't waste the opportunity. When that bastard Liu married me, there wasn't even a whole chicken on the table, but now he's spending my hard-earned money. I couldn't finish the sentence. A seething rage bubbled up in my chest, choking me. The chicken leg slipped from Xuelang's hand, landing on the ground with a thud. Wait, he used your money, the money you earned from robbing tombs. I shot him an annoyed glare. What else did he think? He quickly picked it up, blew off the dust, and took a huge, vengeful bite. Don't worry. I'll eat every last copper back for you. After polishing off 2 whole chickens, his eyes glazed over in a food coma. I should have skipped lunch if I'd known there'd be this much good stuff. Just then, firecrackers suddenly exploded outside the Shen residence, rattling the windows. A procession of musicians led a red bridal sedan chair, swaying slowly toward the gate. Liu Qingyuan stood waiting outside, dressed in a vibrant red wedding robe, his hands clasped behind his back. Unlike the pure joy he'd shown when he married me, the look on his face now was more like a top scholar receiving congratulations from all the officials after acing the imperial exams. Triumph mingled with arrogant pride. I hauled the dazed Xuelang off the bench, pulled my veil over my face, and followed the crowd of neighbors into the house. The entrance hall was decorated with red silk and fresh flowers. Bursting with festive cheer, the matchmaker helped the bride forward, guiding her to stand before the groom. Once everyone had taken their seats, she cleared her throat and called out in a loud, shrill voice, "First bow to heaven and earth." The couple faced the altar and knelt, kowtowing deeply. Second bow to the parents. On the raised platform at the head of the hall, 2 ancestral tablets sat alone on the table, empty of any living faces. Liu Qingyuan straightened his robes, composing his features to perform the solemn ritual. But then Xuelang, who'd been silent all this time, finally spoke up. "Hold on." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Whispers broke out. "I heard the bride is a stunning beauty. Could this be a case of bride snatching?" Liu Qingyuan's face darkened. "May I ask who you are, and what business brings you here?" "Nothing so dramatic," Xuelang replied, stepping forward slowly and pulling an exquisitely carved token from his sleeve. "I've been sent here by the owner of this token to congratulate the happy couple on their wedding day." Liu Qingyuan's eyes darted to the token. The anger on his face vanished instantly, replaced by stunned delight. "It's from the Marquis, from my father-in-law." "Shush!" Xuelang pressed a finger to his lips, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Best not to speak too loudly, sir. Walls have ears in a place like this." The Marquis was none too pleased to hear you'd married his daughter outside the mansion without his permission, but seeing as you saved her ladyship's life, and given what a fine, handsome fellow you are, he's reluctantly agreed to accept you as his son-in-law. The Marquis is a man who values propriety above all else. Though he couldn't come in person today, he's sent a very distinguished guest to represent him. When you bow to the parents next, you will bow to her. With that, he turned to gesture for me to step forward. "This is..." Liu Qingyuan shot me a skeptical glance, his brow furrowed deeply. "A distinguished guest." She looked nothing more than a young woman in plain clothes. The emperor had no princesses. What woman in the entire realm could possibly be more noble than Princess Anning? Ning 1111. This was clearly a deliberate insult, a way to put him in his place. He straightened his back, his tone icy with resolve. "The wedding bow is a sacred ritual. We only bow to heaven, earth, the emperor, our parents, and our teachers. This guest is far too young. She is not worthy to receive the bow of myself and her ladyship." Xuelang's expression turned icy with displeasure. "You dare to speak with such arrogance, sir." The Marquis begged for days to secure this guest's presence today. She is none other than the crown princess herself. Yet here you are, showing her such disrespect, defying the imperial family. Are you so eager to turn this wedding into a funeral? I froze in shock. We'd agreed to make up a fancy title to intimidate him, but this was taking it way too far. Liu Qingyuan paled, his face going as white as a sheet. He'd never dreamed the Marquis would value him this highly, let alone that the future Empress would grace his wedding with her presence. He threw himself to the ground, kowtowing frantically. "Your Highness, please forgive my insolence. I had no idea," Xuelang snapped. "Well, what are you waiting for?" Liu Qingyuan scrambled forward on his hands and knees, groveling at my feet like a dog. "I pay my respects to your Highness." For a moment, I was overcome with a wave of bitter memories. Years ago, at the academy, Liu Qingyuan's arrogance had earned him the jealousy of his classmates. They'd hired a gang of thugs to drag him to a desolate spot, planning to beat him within an inch of his life. They'd told him if he knelt and begged for mercy, they'd let him go unharmed. But he'd refused, stubborn to the bone. When I'd found him, he was covered in blood, barely conscious, but he'd still managed to smile and say, "A gentleman dies with honor. They are the ones who lost." Yet now, that same unyielding pride, the kind that couldn't be broken even by a beating, had been so easily bent, so utterly shattered, all for the sake of power and status, and broken so pathetically. Enough of this. I stepped over him, walking straight to the seat of honor on the platform. With a slight wave of my hand, I signaled for the ceremony to continue. A flicker of relief and joy crossed Liu Qingyuan's face. The noble guest hadn't stormed off in anger, she'd actually taken the seat of his parents. Surely that meant she'd forgiven his insolence. Second bow to the parents. The matchmaker called out again. After kowtowing 3 times to me, he seemed to think it wasn't enough. He roughly dragged the bride down with him, forcing her to kowtow 3 more times. Just to prove his sincerity, I watched coldly from my seat as the 2 of them knelt and rose and knelt before me, 9 times in total. How utterly ridiculous. After the couple bowed to each other, the matchmaker declared the ceremony complete. The crowd cheered, streaming back to the banquet tables to drink and feast. Liu Qingyuan was about to go out to greet his guests when Xuelang grabbed him by the arm, yanking him back sharply. "Have you no sense of propriety, sir? The wedding ceremony is over. Shouldn't you hurry back to the mansion to pay your respects to your father-in-law?" I changed into the clothes of a stable hand. Xuelang had already prepared a carriage, waiting for us at the back gate. We waited for what felt like an hour, but the couple never appeared. Just as I was about to go back inside to check on them, the fake Ning 1111 stumbled out, her face streaked with tears, clinging desperately to Liu Qingyuan's sleeve. The 2 of them were locked in a tug-of-war at the gate, each pulling in opposite directions. "Husband, please, I beg you, I can't go back. You can't make me go back," she sobbed hysterically. "Father will kill us both. I swear it, he will." Liu Qingyuan finally lost his patience, shoving her roughly to the ground. "Enough of your nonsense. Will you stop spouting these mad delusions? The Marquis has shown us nothing but kindness. If you keep acting like this, don't blame me for losing my temper with you." She stared at him in stunned disbelief. "Kindness? How could you say that? I'm not even." My heart skipped a beat. Oh no, she was going to blow her cover. But Xuelang was faster. He darted forward, pretending to help her up, and discreetly pressed a pressure point on her back. Silencing her instantly, he pushed her back into Liu Qingyuan's arms, smiling politely. "Her ladyship has always been a little spoiled. I hope you'll be patient with her, sir." The fake Ning 1111's face turned bright red with frustration, but she couldn't utter a single word. I lifted the carriage curtain, my voice cold and sharp. "Shall we go? If we delay any longer, I'm afraid the Marquis will grow impatient." The couple climbed into the carriage, one after the other. I let the heavy curtain fall, tucking the edges tightly to seal the gap. It didn't take long before the sounds of movement from inside faded away completely. That knockout incense imported from the western regions really was potent stuff. Xuelang and I wasted no time. We whipped the horses into a gallop. Racing out of the city before the curfew bell rang, 30 li northeast of the capital, there was a desolate mass grave, a place with terrible feng shui, where no one would ever think to look, in a deep pit we'd dug earlier. A brand new coffin waited, the tung oil on its surface still sticky and wet. Xuelang helped me drag the two unconscious bodies out of the carriage and lower them into the coffin. They were so heavy, so lifeless. I bowed 3 times to the coffin, my voice laced with bitter sarcasm. I ate your wedding feast but didn't bring a gift, how rude of me. Consider this my wedding present to you both. Don't worry, it's brand new, custom made just for you. I'd barely stood up when a faint stirring came from inside the coffin. Liu Qingyuan was awake. He blinked slowly, his eyes clearing as he pieced together what had happened. Forging the Marquis's token, kidnapping the princess and her consort, he hissed, his voice cold with rage. Who are you people? Do you have a death wish? Trapped in a coffin like this, he was far calmer and more composed than I'd been in the same situation. But he was still wrong, beneath the pale moonlight. I pulled off my veil, revealing my face to him, an old friend. Recognition dawned in his eyes, followed by stunned disbelief. Aye, you're alive, alive. The old Shintiani, the one who'd loved him, trusted him, would have died for him, had died a long time ago. The woman standing here now, she feared the cruelty of men, doubted every act of kindness, and had given up on love entirely. Wasn't that the same as being dead? So the Marquis, his voice trembled, realization sinking in like a knife. He never knew I existed. He never knew 1111 was alive. The messenger, the token, the crown princess, all of it was a lie, a trick you played to humiliate me. He'd always cared more about his reputation than anything else in the world. The memory of his humiliating groveling, his desperate kowtowing, flashed before his eyes, and rage burned in his gaze, hot enough to melt steel. When I get out of here, I'll kill you. I swear I'll kill you both. A boot slammed down hard on the coffin lid, pinning it shut. Xuelang's face was dark with fury as he leaned down, punching Liu Qingyuan hard in the jaw. Do you really think you're getting out of here alive? Liu Qingyuan spat out a mouthful of blood, laughing bitterly. What? Do you two lowly commoners dare to murder the princess and her consort? Murder? I smiled coldly, pulling my gleaming Luoyang shovel from behind my back. Would never dare do such a thing. Because there is no princess here. He froze, confusion flickering across his face. What are you talking about? The Marquis of Qi dotes on his daughter more than anything in the world. It's common knowledge. If that's the case, how could he have ever bare to send her to marry a dying man? And besides, I grabbed the fake Ning 1111's hands, yanking them up to show him. Her palms were covered in old scars and calluses, rough from years of hard work. Tell me, what noble lady in the entire realm has soft, delicate hands like these? The color drained from Liu Qingyuan's face, leaving him paler than a corpse. You mean, she's not? Impossible. It can't be. He glared at me, his eyes wild with denial. Shintiani, this is another one of your lies, another one of your tricks. Is it? Xuelang reached down, tapping a pressure point on the fake Ning 1111's waist to undo the silencing spell. Then let her tell you the truth herself. Yinga, at the sound of her real name, her eyes flew open wide with shock. You. Who are you? Only someone from the Marquis's mansion could possibly know her real name. There was no use lying anymore. She bit her lips so hard it bled, hesitation warring with desperation on her face. Finally, she blurted out the truth. It's true. I lied to you. All of it was a lie. I'm not the lady of the mansion. I'm just a maid, a lowly servant. When the emperor issued the marriage edict, the real Miss Ning refused to marry the prince. This was the only way we could think of to save her. But I never meant to deceive you like this at first. A look of bitter resentment twisted her features. I tried so many times to win your heart, but you ignored me. You looked down on me, acting all high and mighty. It wasn't until I pretended to be the princess that you finally saw me, that you finally wanted me. Liu Qingyuan, This is all your fault." Her words were cut off by a gurgling gasp. Liu Qingyuan had grabbed her by the throat, his fingers tightening around her neck with a ferocity that bordered on madness. "You worthless bitch," he snarled, his eyes bulging from their sockets, looking like a rabid dog. "How dare you lie to me like this? How dare you play me for a fool? I killed my wife. I killed my unborn child. I betrayed everything I ever believed in, all for you. I spent every waking moment dreaming of revenge, of power, of finally rising above my station, all because of you." The sound of cracking bones echoed through the night air as his grip tightened, and it was all a lie. Every single thing was a lie. I realized what was happening and lunged forward to stop him, but it was too late. The fake Ning 1111's head lolled to the side at an unnatural angle. A dark stain spread across her clothes as her body went limp, her breath snuffed out forever. Liu Qingyuan released his grip, staring at her lifeless body in horror before collapsing to his knees, laughing and crying hysterically at the same time. "A lie. Ha 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 ha. It was all a lie. I betrayed her for you. I killed her for a worthless servant like you." He suddenly looked up at me, his face streaked with blood and tears, his expression utterly deranged. "Shintiani, tell me, is this my punishment? Is this what I deserve?" I shook my head slowly, reaching down to push the coffin lid closed. "No, this isn't enough. Your real punishment is still to come." Liu Qingyuan never did believe it, not even as I hammered the nails into the coffin lid, sealing him inside forever. The wife who'd carried him on her back for 3 days and 3 nights through the snow, the wife who'd stayed up all night copying ancient texts, just to earn a few extra coins to support them. He'd never imagined that one day, this same wife would want him dead, and that she would stop at nothing to make it happen, no matter how he wept, how he begged for mercy. I remained cold and unmoved, my face a mask of stone. I just kept shoveling dirt into the pit, one spadeful after another. The air inside the coffin ran out quickly. Soon, Liu Qingyuan's screams turned into ragged, desperate gasps for breath. Eventually, he fell silent. His voice came out in a faint, trembling whisper, barely audible through the thin layer of soil. "Very well, I owe you my life anyway. Now, I'll repay it with my own. There's just one last thing I ask of you." I prodded the coffin lid with my shovel, a silent signal for him to continue. "Raise our child well, please, no matter what happens. Make sure he avenges our clan." I laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed through the empty graveyard. So even after everything, power and glory meant nothing to him. Only revenge. Revenge was the only thing that had ever truly mattered to Liu Qingyuan. In that case, I took a deep breath and shouted my reply, my voice ringing loud and clear across the mass grave. "Sorry to disappoint you, but the doctor already cured me of that pregnancy with a single hawthorn pill." The moment the words left my mouth, there was complete, eerie silence beneath the dirt. I thought back to that day at the clinic, when the doctor had stared at me in disbelief before bursting out laughing. "Ridiculous," he'd exclaimed. "Pregnancy? Don't make me laugh. You've just got a bad case of indigestion." It felt like an eternity before the pit was finally filled to the brim. Shuelang and I took turns stamping the dirt down until it was hard and compact, then collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air, exhausted beyond words. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, my heart filled with nothing but regret. "God Almighty," I groaned. "If I'd known being a good person would lead to all this trouble, I would have stopped a long time ago. No good deed ever goes unpunished, and now I'm stuck here, worn out half to death." He reached over, brushing a strand of sweat-soaked hair behind my ear, his touch gentle. "Then don't be a good person anymore. Simple as that. From now on, we'll be nothing but ruthless thieves. What do you say?" I looked at him out of the corner of my eye, my tone casual. "Speaking of thieves, who exactly are you, anyway?" A faint smile tugged at his lips, and he opened his mouth to answer when suddenly, a cold arrow shot through the air, burying itself in the ground just inches away from us. Xuelang's face paled instantly. He threw his arms around me and rolled us to the side just as a flurry of arrows rained down on the spot where we'd been lying. Dozens of hooded figures dropped from the trees like spiders, surrounding us completely. The leader's voice was that of an old man, deep and gravelly, oozing with malice, impressive reflexes. "Your Highness," he sneered. "Prince Regent." Xuelang's eyes turned icy with rage, his jaw tightening. "You old fox. I should have known you'd see through my disguise. Now that the cat's out of the bag, aren't you going to kneel and pay your respects to your future emperor?" I froze, my mind going blank. He was the crown prince, who was rumored to be cruel and eccentric, who always wore a terrifying ghost mask whenever he left the palace, so terrifying, in fact, that no one except the emperor and the late empress had ever seen his real face, which had earned him the reputation of being hideously ugly. But Xuelang, I looked up at him, my heart racing. He leaned down, his face inches from mine, his breath warm against my skin. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice urgent. His fox-like eyes were sharp and bright, his eyebrows slanting into his hairline. He was breathtakingly handsome, and as for his personality, there was nothing cruel or eccentric about him, not in the slightest. After a moment of stunned silence, I came to a single conclusion: rumors were complete and utter nonsense. The old man laughed, reaching up to pull off his hood, revealing a face as white as snow, crinkled with age. "My old legs aren't what they used to be, Your Highness," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I think I'll send my men to greet you instead." "Shoot to kill." Xuelang shielded me behind his body, using a few crumbling tombstones as cover. The sound of arrows hitting stone echoed like rain, filling the air with a deafening clatter. Trapped as we were, with death closing in from all sides, he turned to look at me, his smile calm and unafraid. "See, told you that old man was bold enough to rebel." It hit me like a bolt of lightning. This was the Marquis of Qi, I gasped, the pieces finally falling into place. "That's why when we told you about Liu Qingyuan a few days ago, you acted like you didn't care, but you still gave us the Marquis's token. He recognized you that day. He knew exactly who you were and has been planning this ambush ever since. It's a perfect trap, using us to get rid of Liu Qingyuan, then killing us to tie up all the loose ends. But why? Why go to all this trouble?" His breath brushed against my hair, soft as a kiss. "You're smarter than you look. And don't forget about the sixth prince, the dying